Okay, so curricula is the plural form of the word curriculum. Curriculum is a whole course of study for a particular group at a particular level. So, um, a Bachelor of Engineering, Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering has a curriculum. The people who run it at the university decide what is in that curriculum. And then each of the classes that you take in that bachelor has a syllabus, which is what's in that class. So a curriculum belongs to a whole program, a syllabus to an individual class. Curricula is plural. Curricula are all of the curriculums, we might say, for students, in this case, school students.
Yeah.
Maths curriculum, a language curriculum, history and geography curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay, um, so there's a in this sentence there's a contrast. States have moved to replace bad things, but it's harder to decide what the good things are that should replace them with. They should replace them with. So, weak instructional approaches means ways of teaching that are not very good. So they've tried to force schools not to use bad teaching methods. So this is based on educational research, I'm sure. Um, but for example, testing students on something they haven't learned yet. That's usually seen as poor alignment, and it reduces their confidence and it stops them from learning. So when students arrive in a class, and let's say that class is about language, and the first thing you do is test them on really hard and precise grammatical questions, that would not be a very good instructional approach. What you'd more likely want to do is choose a few grammatical ideas, expose them to those in authentic examples, explain them, then set them off to look at some examples of their own, then test them at the end. That would be a stronger instructional approach. So your teaching and your assessment are aligned. They're designed to build confidence, to gradually build knowledge. So I think that's what they have in mind here. All they're saying is that it's easier to know what we shouldn't do than it is to know what we should. So figuring out, to figure out is to puzzle over, or to maybe to investigate and decide what they should do instead. And they're saying that that process, figuring that out or deciding, is actually harder than knowing what to stop. Okay, so firstly, education is an intensely politicized space, at least in Australia, and certainly in places like the United States. That is, politicians routinely talk about what's happening in schools, what should be taught in schools, whether students are learning the right things. They often talk about that from an economic perspective. They say, oh, our students aren't learning to use these high-tech tools or aren't learning these current techniques. When they get jobs, they're going to not be able to do the jobs. The part of the reason for that is that politicians only listen to business owners, and business owners no longer want to train their employees. They want the students to come out of school ready to work for them, which is of course ridiculous because what they need to learn will change, every week. So politicians and political questions about education are quite common in places like Australia and probably in the United States. And then what they're saying is that politicians make this claim that there are actually straightforward things that teachers can do in class that are effective. So the reason why declared is chosen here is because a declaration is like a claim. It doesn't need any evidence. You can claim something, you can declare it, you can assert it, you can assume it without needing any evidence. So politicians, what they're doing is they're coming forward, they're saying there are scientifically proven ways of teaching. Why aren't our teachers using those? Let's make them use those. What the writer here is saying is that those claims or declarations are false. If you were going to use the word agreed, have falsely agreed, firstly, that would be strange to falsely agree. Would you be agreeing? Would you be deceiving someone? But also, agree with who? Agree with, because the writer hasn't put forward an idea yet, really. So, or put forward, they've said that there actually aren't easy answers. And so politicians couldn't agree with that, really, because they're saying the opposite. They're saying actually that there are easy answers. Science has already shown us what they are. And then education companies have rushed to meet the demand for new materials. So politicians say one thing, companies come along and say, look, we can sell you this thing that will do what you've asked for. And school districts are just supposed to buy that. I think the fact that it says school district to me implies that this is written in the United States. In Australia, we talk about catchment areas. We talk about schools take students from within a geographical area. We don't talk about districts. So politicians are saying there's an easy way to teach. You should use this. Companies come forward and say, yeah, look, we can sell you the materials so that you can do what politicians are telling you to do. And the schools are supposed to just buy that.
So I got it. So
It could be everything from a whole curriculum that is documents, teaching materials, syllabuses, audiovisual material. It could be an app. It could be textbook. It could be lots of different things that they try and sell. So, for example, at my child's school, there are two apps that they use for homework. One of them is the homework for maths, and one of them is the homework for language. And those are both made by companies for profit. In that case, the school itself has some choice over which ones they can use, but they have to be vetted by the state government. So the state says you're allowed to use these using some of this funding if you think that they suit your students' needs. Here are your options. The companies can't create something that just does whatever they want. It has to be carefully checked. In the United States, I think it's much more of a free-for-all. That is, I think a school district, people can influence that district. Maybe local politicians can influence the decisions that that district makes much more easily. So to concentrate is to draw disparate things together. So to falsely concentrate that something doesn't quite make sense here.
so we cannot
You,
use concentrated here.
no. So if you could say that politicians have mistakenly concentrated on science-backed alternatives, that is, they've given their full attention to those, and that doing that is a mistake. But you would have to change a number of things. You'd be changing the meaning quite substantially.
And also, as you mentioned, we have to use on after concentrated. Yep.
Unless they were actually, I don't know, doing some kind of chemical process where they concentrate, they boil down something into a concentrate.
Great.
Yeah.